What is up, you guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It feels like it's been a really long time since I've just done a sit down chat with you guys, Q&A, and today I get to do an exciting one because I now have a baby girl. And on Instagram I asked you guys to ask any questions that you had about our life right now, postpartum, the birth experience, this whole transition into motherhood, and you guys asked a lot of questions, and so I'm gonna go through these as fast as I can. I feel like each of them could be individual videos, and if there's anything that you guys want me to go more in depth on, let me know in the comments so I can do that for you. But to avoid this becoming like a full-on podcast, I'm just gonna answer them as quickly as I can and try and touch on the things that you guys are most interested in. I also just wanted to start by saying thank you to everyone who has sent well wishes and messages saying congratulations or letting us know that you are praying for our family in this transition. It has honestly been so appreciated, and Jared and I have absolutely loved reading through all of the comments and messages that you have sent over on Instagram, and so we wanted to say thank you for that. But I also wanted to just shout out any of the people that have been sticking it out on my channel and you are not subscribed for baby related content. If you are here for like general lifestyle or marriage, relationships, fashion, beauty, any of that content, know that it is coming. I am a lifestyle content creator and this is my life right now. I am very deep in the whole baby world, and so all of my content is very baby heavy right now, but don't worry, I have lots of great content coming down the pipe. I've got some collaborations with some sweet brands coming on YouTube that you guys are gonna be really excited to see, so stay tuned for all of that coming soon. For context, for any of you that don't know, at the time of filming this video, my husband and I have a 3-week-old baby girl named Vivian. She is absolutely wonderful. We had her on June 14th and it has been a whirlwind since then. Like, honestly, the transition into motherhood is insane. It's so wonderful, so beautiful, but it is also absolutely insane. So I'm going to jump into these questions now, cover all the things that you guys are most curious about. Grab your cup of coffee because we're gonna get into all of the juicy details. I have been microwaving this since like 10 a.m. today and I'm still not done it. So this is gonna be my time to finish it off while we sit down and have a little chat together. But the first question that I'm gonna dive into is one that I got a few of, and it's how I am feeling and how I'm doing in my postpartum recovery. So as I mentioned, this is one of those ones that I think I'm going to do a full kind of postpartum update on, maybe like a month postpartum or 6 weeks postpartum, when they generally like clear you for working out, sex, all of those things again. In my case, postpartum recovery has actually been pretty good. As I mentioned in my birth vlog, right after I gave birth, I didn't have that much issue with peeing or that hurting or things like that. But I will say that postpartum recovery is not really a linear thing, and I feel like that's one thing that I didn't necessarily know going into it. I had this expectation that like how I'm feeling the day that I come home from the hospital is the worst that it gets, and then every single day gets a little bit better from there. That's not necessarily true. I went home from the hospital feeling like actually pretty okay, and when I came home I wanted to have people over, like hang out, see them, but in the days following things actually started to get a little bit worse. I found that walking a lot really irritated things, like even going up and down the stairs was hard for me, and so I ended up waiting like 3 days before I even came to like the middle level of my house. Like, I just stayed in bed, and luckily we had friends and family that were able to support with that and like bringing meals, cleaning up, all of the rest. And then I found that I would get a little bit better and then I would kind of regress again. And it was really tied to my activity and what I was doing. And so I have just been trying to take it easy, pay attention to my body and see how things are feeling, and then take on the day from there. I will say that now, being 3 weeks postpartum, the major like heavy bleeding has stopped for me. It stopped around 2 weeks, so I didn't have to wear the heavy pads anymore. I was now just wearing regular pads and continue to do that. But there are a few different stages of postpartum bleeding, and in the second stage it's basically all of the like fluids just draining out of you, and it's not red, it's like this yellow stuff that may be TMI for you, but a lot of people don't talk about this. And so that's the stage that I'm in now, where it's just the remainder of what's happening. Like, my body is just transitioning back into regular operations, and so I'm feeling a lot better. Things are okay for me, and I'm looking forward to finding out how things are actually at the 6-week checkup. The next question is postpartum related, and it's about how I've been doing mentally postpartum and if I've had any difficult emotions after birth. I would say that for the first 2 weeks after birth, I didn't necessarily have like baby blues in a negative sense, but I was very emotional, very hormonal. Again, you guys saw in that birth vlog when that like set in for me, when I just started crying because I was like, I don't want her to grow up. And that happened to me probably twice a day, every day for 2 weeks of just like sobbing. And it would be happy tears, it would be overwhelmed tears, like it would be literally anything. But I was very emotional coming home and adjusting into this new life. And it wasn't necessarily bad, but it was a lot. Imagine the feelings that you get like leading up to your period and then extend that by a super long time. That's kind of what it feels like. And so I would say that I'm on the lucky end where I didn't necessarily struggle with depression or anything like that. There have been moments where I've wondered, do I have postpartum anxiety? Because I would get really overwhelmed and worried about whether or not she was eating enough or if she was growing past her birth weight, all of these different things that you work through as a new mom. But in those moments, I think honestly, I was just really overtired because I would get a little bit of sleep and wake up after 2 hours and feel okay again. And so just give yourself grace. If you do notice that things are extending past a certain point, it can be really good to loop a doctor or a close friend into that to be able to chat through what options are. But in my case, I feel like most of what I've experienced has been just those regular hormonal shifts and changes that you have when you have your baby. This next question is about how we adjusted when we got home. So basically, to update you guys, we came home on, I think it was like June 16th, and Jared's mom actually stayed with us for a couple of weeks. She gave us so much space to be able to just adjust to life with Vivian and focus on her, and she took care of a lot of the cooking and cleaning around the house, which was a huge blessing. So right now, as I film this, I'm actually in my first week just like alone with no support, and I know that's not the norm for a lot of people, so I've been very grateful to be able to have that. My mom stopping by and helping with baths and diaper changes and all of these different kinds of things, so that's been really great. And then people were also curious how long Jared took off of work as well. So Jared took off the first week completely. He was off of that from work to be able to just be at home and adjust with us. And then the next week he did 2 days working from home and the rest off. So again, like another 5 days of just full on focused attention on me and Vivian. And then on week 3, he did 2 days in the office and then the rest of the week just at home. So another 5 days just at home. So I think in total it was like probably close to 20 days that Jared was off just home with us and adjusting to our new life. And that was really nice. So that was kind of what our transition into being at home with the baby has looked like so far. I've gotten lots of questions about birth specifically, so before I go into how Vivian is doing, I will tackle some of those. So the biggest kind of overarching question that I got was birth what you thought it would be like? And I don't know, that's a really good question. You really just can't compare it until you do it. I am someone that really feared birth going into it. I made a whole video about the things that I was doing to actually overcome that fear, and that helped me massively. So I will link that up here if you want to check that out, if you are someone that is afraid of birth. But I will say that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. We were just blessed with a great team of doctors. My friend Brittany was a nurse on call that day as well. And so I think like overall, it wasn't as bad as I thought that it was going to be. The actual pain that I experienced was very similar up into a certain point to what I experienced with my period cramps. And for those of you who don't know, I have endometriosis, so my cramps are actually pretty bad. And they were very similar like to the contractions that I was having 2 weeks pre-labor. And then when I was in the hospital and actually admitted for the induction, they had me on Pitocin for a few hours. In the first like 6 hours being on Pitocin, which they say are like the worst contractions that you can have, they were okay. Like I was journaling, I was breathing through them. They were, again, very similar to what I experienced in the like thick of endometriosis period cramps. However, I will say that in the transition to like me choosing to get that epidural, I was at level 16 or 18 on the Pitocin, and like that's out of 20, so that's as pretty well high as you can go up with it. And I was in so much pain. There were moments there that I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And a lot of the times they say that's when you're like really close to being done. But in my case, it wasn't so bad leading up to it. It was just those final moments where I was like, all right, I know that I'm getting close here, but I need this epidural to keep going, and I have no regrets in making that decision. The next question is, did you have any tearing delivering a 10-pound baby? So my daughter Vivian was 9.66 ounces. So technically they round up, which would make her like 9.7 and 22 inches long. She was a big girl. And the funny thing is, when I was born, I was 5 pounds and 5 ounces. My husband, on the other hand, was 10 pounds as well. So genetically, it definitely favored his side of the family, and we found that out going into the 36-week ultrasound, which is why my OB had recommended the scheduled induction, because she was going to be so big and we wanted to mitigate the risk of C-section if we had to go past my due date and she continued to grow in there. She was already 7 pounds at 36 weeks, so she gained like a pound a week leading up to my actual birth and delivery. And I did have some tearing, however, it was not that bad. For me, it was only 2nd degree, and I was happy with that. It was like one of the first things that I asked after she came out. I was like, how is it down there? And they're like, 2nd degree, like not that bad. So I was happy with not having to have an episiotomy or having like 3rd or 4th degree tearing, because I know that that can be common even with like 7 and 8 pound babies. And so I was happy to go home with just a few stitches on a 2nd degree. Now, I also talked a little bit about what I did to prepare for the labor and delivery process to mitigate tearing and things like that in that how we're preparing for a newborn video. So again, go and check that out. But I did do a lot of pelvic floor physiotherapy, perineal stretching. I did try the dates and things like that, but I honestly hated them and didn't keep up with it. So I can't tell you that that worked for me. But I did drink probably 3 cups of raspberry leaf tea a day leading up to labor and delivery. Whether or not that worked, I don't know. I think the biggest thing that helped me not have a lot of tearing or needing an episiotomy is that I didn't rush through the pushing process. So essentially, I went from 3 to 10 centimeters dilated in like less than 30 minutes. It was so quick, and I got to that point where I was 10 centimeters and I felt like I needed to push because she was so heavy down there. It was like time to go, except I knew that I didn't want to just power right through it, and I also knew that if I could let that just kind of sit for a little while baby was still okay, and she totally was. Like, they kept saying like, your baby is so happy in there, she's so agreeable, so do what you feel is right for you. So I took some time to actually just rest up and prepare myself mentally for the pushing process, and I think in that time I sat at 10 centimeters for about 40 minutes to an hour before I started pushing, and that allowed her head to really just kind of drop out and get ready, stretch out that area a little bit more. And then when I did start pushing, I pushed for 40 minutes as well. So I was 10 centimeters and she was really close, but if I had just gunned it, I think I would have probably tore through a lot more than I actually did. It was because I was taking those breaks in between contractions and just allowing myself to breathe that the doctors had more time to kind of stretch out a little bit more, allow her head to come out on its own. And so I think that that's what really helped me personally not have a ton of tearing when delivering a baby as big as my girl was. The next question is also kind of related to tearing and that whole world of things, and it's, have you looked down there? I think this is awesome. So I have, but I waited 2 weeks until I did it. I know some people will come home and just be so curious to like grab a mirror and see what's going on. That was not me. I was personally terrified to look and like didn't want to remember that like visual at all in the future. So I just waited until I felt like, okay, I feel like things are getting a little bit better. So I didn't look until my stitches had fully dissolved and just wanted to see how things were looking, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. So I don't know, if you're one of those people that's just like curious, just give yourself a little bit of time. You'll probably appreciate it. One of the questions that I got was, what's been the easiest and hardest thing about the transition into motherhood, and anything that you didn't expect about the transition into motherhood. So when it comes to what's been the hardest and easiest or best thing, I would say the hardest thing is definitely the lack of sleep. That's something that most people know going into motherhood, is that your entire sleeping routine is now going to be thrown off. I did not sleep very well in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So I think going into having a newborn, I wasn't having a sleep schedule that was that much different from what I was already experiencing. However, now I think I've added in this like, not worry, but this general like desire to make sure that my baby is okay. And so even though our baby is actually a really great sleeper, and I'll get into that in a little bit, I find myself after I wake up to feed her sometimes just sitting there in that like half asleep, half awake phase, being like, did she eat enough? Is she okay? Like, is that breathing normal, etc. And I think that that is all just a normal part of the transition into motherhood. And so I'm trying to give myself grace for that. Your days are not really just night and day anymore. Like, you are on this 24-hour linear schedule with your baby, and you can't see night as like, this is my time to sleep. You kind of just have to roll with the day, see how things go, and give yourself opportunities to rest at other points in time. That's definitely the hardest part, is the lack of sleep. The best part about the transition into motherhood is really just having your baby. Like, I am obsessed with Vivian. She is absolutely incredible. She can do no wrong in my eyes, even at my most tired in the middle of the night, where I'm just like, I want to sleep so badly. When I'm looking at her while she's feeding, it's just like, you are perfect. Like, you are amazing. I love you so much. I want the best for you. Like, I would do anything for you. And it's just this overwhelming feeling of like love that you have for this little baby. Honestly, again, it's one of those things that you just can't understand until you get there. But for me, it was that overwhelming feeling of just, I love this baby so much. That has been the best thing for me so far. One of the other fabulous things is watching her and my husband together. There is nothing that makes my heart swell more than just like seeing him just like cover her in kisses, and her just like, she does this like little open mouth kiss back on him, and it is the sweetest thing ever. There is nothing that will like make you want another baby more than watching your husband just like dote on your baby, especially a little girl. It is the sweetest thing ever, and so that has been a really nice thing to experience too. For things that I didn't expect in the transition into motherhood, I would say probably breastfeeding and the challenges of that are one of the things that I didn't know a whole lot about going into having my baby. Breastfeeding is hard, man. Like, and I don't think that moms talk about that enough, or like what that first week of breastfeeding actually looks like. For me, when it came to feeding her in the hospital and having the colostrum and all of that, her latch was great, except it was so painful for me in the first little bit, to the point where I would literally like be crying and anxious about each feed that I would go into with her, because I knew it was going to hurt so bad. And part of that is like just figuring out latch positioning, all of that different kind of stuff. But part of it is also just like, your nipples need to toughen up. Like, they have not been used, I mean, for most people, in this way before. And so for me, like, even though she had a great latch and the doctors were like, wow, she's latching really well, I was like, why does this hurt so much? So I had to get this like Jack Newman steroid cream to help with all of that. And while it was healing up, I did a lot of hand expression of colostrum, but then you get in your head of like, is my baby eating enough? Like, I can't feed her normally from the boob and all of this different stuff. And so for me, there was like 48 hours where I was very stressed and in a lot of pain from breastfeeding, and I like was very overwhelmed with that. Once my milk came in, and it came in pretty fast, and like that was also painful because I got very engorged and like didn't know what to do with all of this milk I was now producing. So I started pumping, and then was pumping enough for like twins, my lactation consultant said. So they were like, tone it down a little bit. But in that whole transition, I was like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I had no idea what any of this was going to look like going into breastfeeding. And so once I hit my stride with it, and like we got the latch down, we got timelines really good with things, I felt a lot more confident in it. But if I could go back and like tell myself like to focus on one thing, or to give myself more time to get educated on one thing, it would have been breastfeeding for sure. So I'll answer a couple more questions, and I'll focus in specifically on the stuff that you guys are asking about Vivian. So the next question that I got was, do you have a routine with Vivian? And I will say yes and no to this. For the first maybe 2.5 weeks, there was like absolutely no routine. All I knew knew was that I needed to feed her every like 2 to 3 hours and make sure that she was sleeping in between then, which our baby had no issue with because it was actually hard to get her to wake up. So I was like having to use wet cloths and diaper changes and all of these different things to get her up in those first couple of weeks. But once we hit the 3-week mark, when all of the support kind of like went back home, I mean, we still have support, but not like living directly in our house, if you know what I mean. So for me, I was like, I need some sort of semblance of a routine to be able to like feel confident going into each and every day with this baby. And so I followed the eat, play, sleep method, essentially. It comes from BabyWise. I don't know if that's the first kind of place that originated the concept of it, but essentially you feed your baby every 2 to 4 hours, I would say. A lot of people say 2 to 3, but sometimes babies can go 4, especially if they're a little bit bigger. So every 2 to 4 hours, feeding the baby and then keeping them awake for like 20 minutes to sometimes even an hour of awake time or interaction, stimulation. So for me, that is oftentimes reading to her, singing to her, or different playthings like putting her under the mobile now, showing her the mirror, black and white contrast cards, all of that kind of stuff. And then as soon as that stuff, we've gone through our timeline for it, I start to see her tired cues kick in again. So then I will get her ready for her nap. So I will swaddle her, I'll sing to her again, kind of put her down. And I often do put her down awake as well so that she gets into that habit of self-soothing. I don't let her cry it out or anything at this stage. And that has worked really well for us. So then after she wakes up from that nap, then I repeat the process again of feeding, going back into the play, and then sleeping again. That has worked phenomenally for me during the day. It gives me actual timelines of times that I know I can do other things like this. I'm still working on my YouTube channel. I'm still trying to make time to see people, still trying to make time to clean the house during the week and all of those different things. So that has worked really well. When it comes to nighttime, we follow a similar type of routine for actually putting her down. It's a little bit more thorough with diaper change first, like putting her into her PJs, swaddling, sound machine. I'll put her down and then she'll generally sleep for like a 4-hour chunk to a 5-hour chunk and then wake up to feed and then go back down for another 3 to 4 hour chunk before waking up for the day after that. And by the day, I mean like for that 1 hour and then going back down for the naps. So newborns do sleep quite a bit. Ours has been a great sleeper and we've been really blessed with that. And that is the routine that has worked well for us so far. On that same topic, you guys also talked about how Jared and I are making time for each other. We're still figuring that out. Right now, we're taking a couple of minutes after each work day for him when he comes home to just catch up and be like, how was your day? How are things going? How can I help you? And also just being a team, I would say, is the biggest thing for like actually having the time to spend together. Because if we are operating like he goes to work and comes home and I just take care of the baby and those are the 2 lanes we're running in, like we're not going to cross over a lot. And so I find that operating as a team and being like, okay, here's all the things that need to happen in the next hour. I'll tackle this, you tackle this. That gives us more time to be able to sit down at the end of the day and like watch a movie or honestly just hang out and spend time together. Prioritize intimacy, which is another topic that can be really taboo in the postpartum period because we as women can't necessarily receive a lot, but we can still give and prioritize that in our marriage and relationship. And so that has been an important thing for us as well. And I find that by working as a team, it makes a lot of that stuff more easy and manageable to fit into our lives. So I have time for one more question because I just checked our baby monitor and I can see that she is stirring a little bit. So I'm gonna wrap this up now, but the final question that I will answer is, how many babies do you guys want in total? Great question. Before I gave birth, I would say in like 2nd trimester when things were just at their peak and you're feeling so great about being pregnant and a woman and you're like, this is fabulous. I would say that I wanted like 4 babies, but now looking at everything that I went through to have this baby, like full pregnancy, all of the labor and delivery, all the postpartum, which I'm still not even done yet, I'm like, okay, maybe 4 is a lot. Right now, I would say I'm probably leaning towards 3, and Jared would probably be in the same boat. The thing is, I just love newborns so much that I wish I could just have like 1,000 newborns and then not have to raise like 1,000 children to be 18 years old because it lasts so much longer than the newborn stage. catch me at 6 months, 1 year. I'll let you know how I actually feel about how many babies I want at that point. But right now I would say we're probably still hovering around 3. Girlfriend wanted to join us for the outro, so we got a little friend with us now. This is Vivian, for anyone who hasn't seen her yet. She's stirring and waking up right now, doing all of her stretches down here. Guys, look at this skin tone. I don't know where this came from because neither Jared or I are tanned people, like on our own, but we've got a lovely complexion going on this girl. Hi, honey. She got a little hungry, so we're doing that off camera. But the entire labor and delivery experience, again, like as hard as it is, it's one of those things that's just like so incredibly special. And looking back on it, like I don't have any bad memories or things that's like, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't have to do that. Like it's just, I have such fond memories of it because it was how I got to meet her. And so I'm just so grateful that we had that experience and that we can look back on it with fond memories. All right, now that she is up and fed and burped, we are going to go hang out now. So I am going to wrap up the video here because we are both a hot mess after that feeding. So thank you guys so much for watching this video today and for sending in your questions. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Beth Grace Moore if you want to be able to submit questions for my next Q&A or video ideas or any of that kind of thing. So follow me over there, but also make sure that you like this video before you head out today. It would mean the world to me, and let me know what types of videos you guys want to see soon. As I mentioned, there will be lots of lifestyle content coming in the next couple of weeks, so really looking forward to sharing all of that with you guys. But until my next video, I love you guys, praying for you guys, and I will see you soon. Say bye-bye.